these days with independent media, not just films, but podcasts and all this other stuff, people that otherwise would have been working for somebody else are now working for themselves and having to develop their own personal brand. And I'm not sure most people really know how to do it, because part of it is being a self-promoter to some degree, and I'm not good at that. Like I was a soldier. My job is to be quiet and fuck people up. You know what I mean? So the idea of making people look at me all the time is not something I'm super comfortable with. Luckily, I do it in a room by myself with a camera.
Let's go.
Welcome to Stisen. We got a couple of special guests today. First, both of these guys, by the way, are from a movie I've been talking about recently. You may have heard me speak about it, called Stand Your Ground. Nice little shoot 'em up. You know, I know you guys like to watch those. So Fansu Njie is the first guy. I believe you're the director, and then the star Daniel Stisen. How you guys doing today?
Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, great. So I'm going to start, Fansu, with you. You guys are both from Scandinavia, Sweden and Norway, respectively, I believe. My family comes from Denmark originally. Still never seen the Northern Lights up there. That's the only thing that I've missed. But I've tried all your weird foods. Lutefisk is ridiculous. There's no reason that should exist. I don't know why that exists. But
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think most.
That's actually my favorite.
Is it really? God. So my friend's kid, when she was a baby, loved that shit. Just like shoveling it into her mouth. I'm like, oh my God, give me the meatballs, keep the cod soaked in lye, please. Anyways, we're not here to talk about food. How did you get into the film industry? This for Fansu.
Yeah, so I started, quite young, the traditional way, watching a lot of films, and I always, I grew up always hearing that, it's impossible to make films without contacts and a Hollywood budget. So what I actually did was, I bought a small camera when I was a teenage age around 17, and told everyone that the camera was just for birthdays and such. So that's where I began making short films with friends. So I went the long way to learn all the aspects of film from start. And that's something I continued doing after that. So I wasn't the classical film school student. Mm-hmm. I learned everything from audio to video and camera operating and everything. So that was my film school.
Yeah, and you say that the general sense is that it's difficult to make movies in general, which is to some degree that's definitely true, but also that without big Hollywood budgets, it's difficult. And I think one of the reasons, like comedies used to be pretty cheap to make. They didn't there's not a whole lot of sets, not a whole lot of editing involved. I mean, there's not a whole lot of CGI in comedy movies for the most part. So these labor intensive, 14-month edits aren't really a thing. But for action movies, it's a different story. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. Most of the big ones, and they sell really well too internationally. The American box office is kind of like, it's just okay now. I think 80% of the box office for superhero movies is in Asia these days. So they just like shoot 'em ups. They don't care, you know what I mean? But how is it that you found? What was the budget for this film, and then how did you manage around a budget, which I assume wasn't $200 million, which is what a lot of these action movies are.
Yeah, I mean, it's independent budget in that sense. So that forces you to be more creative. So that's I mean more or less used the same method as when I began making films. That the more limitations you have, the more creativity you need to use. So I just used the same mindset. Just that I had bigger explosions, better cast, better crew. More interesting locations and such. So it's just you just scale up compared to before.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that practical effects are quite a bit cheaper than like months and months of editing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, also you have more control in a sense as well, because what you see is what you get. And also, the audience, when they see a practical effect, they react more natural as well compared to. I mean, even a blockbuster with 100 mil, the audience will react on if the CG is bad.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So the latest Mission Impossible just came out, and Tom Cruise he's wild as hell. I don't know how that dude's still alive because he's done so much crazy shit over the years. He does. I mean, you would think that a guy that's been doing action movies for 30 years now, 40, almost 4. I guess if you count Top Gun, it's technically 40 years. Wouldn't be taking all these practical effect risk, but he loves doing it. You know what I mean? And you can. That's one of the things I think that really endears him to people is that he does that stuff himself.
Yeah, people really like the real deal, and that's
for sure.
something I've really aimed for as well from start. I have all the kind of elements, because when I was young, when I began making action films with friends, we used practical effects. Small explosions, and that's where we all started.
Yeah, Daniel, what about you? How did you get into the business?
I had a dream when I was a kid. It started with a dream, a seed that was. I think it came from my dad. He was a bodybuilder, but he had all his muscles, and he showed me all these pictures of from. Basically, the Arnold. You remember the black and white pictures of Arnold on Venice Beach?
Yeah.
So I started. He told me about this guy. He came from Austria. And he traveled to America, and he became the biggest film star. And this is still in the 80s or late 80s, and he talked a story about him. So I was like, wow, this is cool. So he seeded that seed in my mind, and then. Probably the one that made the kind of become I gonna do this was when I saw Rambo 2. I watched Rambo 2 as a kid with him. My mom, she didn't know I was watching it because he wouldn't allow me, but he was okay with it, And when I saw, Stallone is amazing, that was kind of, this is what I want to be when I get older. And from there on, I always had it in my mind. One of my friends told me, and I don't remember this, but he remembered it. He said, so in Scandinavia, you start learning English in young age. I think we are like 8 years old when we start doing English classes. And the teacher told us, he's like, why do we have to learn the English language? And, the answers maybe is this is the language of business and travel and blah, 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 And I said, I need to learn English because I'm going to Hollywood. And then I was 8 or 9 years old. So it's always been in me. But when I get into but I was very into sports. I loved sports. I was good in most sports I want to do, And in my early teenagers, I was playing football, rugby, whatever, all kinds of sports. And then I started lifting weights when I was 14, 15 in my dad's gym. And then I got into competition. So I started lifting weights for competition. I did powerlifting, and I was decent good. And when I was 20, I went into bodybuilding. And I followed my dad's footsteps. But something is, if you want to be good at something, you just take all your time. So when I started competing, I want to be number one. So, you have all this, you give everything, and suddenly you go to school. And when you don't go to school, you're in the gym and train, or you make food, you have to eat all these proteins. So I was into basically going to school, go to the gym. I worked in the gym, in my dad's gym a little bit. And then I went to train in the gym, and then went home to sleep, That was my teenagers. I didn't go to parties or anything, just training, school. Um, so my film ideas went a little bit on the back burner. I didn't think too much about it. I love watching movies, and I was, but I didn't think too much about it for a couple of years. But when I start getting some injuries in bodybuilding, and I see, okay, I can continue this journey, and I'm good. But if I want to be one of the best in the Mr. Olympia, that was my goal. It's like I want to be one of the best in the world. With those injuries I start getting, it's not possible. So I was kind of, okay, should I try and try? And it's really not possible with injuries because then I kind of start looking into, okay, if I don't do the bodybuilding, what then? And then this idea I had as a child come back to me saying, okay, it's time to do something else crazy. And then I kind of was thinking, well, maybe I'm too old and this is my late 20s, am I getting too old? Maybe. And for a year or two, I was kind of reading a little bit to make a decision, but then I made a decision. And when I made that decision, is 100% from there on, every single day, is to achieve my goal. And then I traveled to London to train stunt with some of the best stunt teams in the UK. And then later I traveled over to Los Angeles to study acting with Ivana Chubbuck. When I was in LA, a lot of the reality of this industry hit me. It's a tough industry, and I have an accent, and I saw everyone I went to class was much better than I was. I was thinking, okay, how I am gonna achieve it. But then back to the School of Honor, make you up. He made everything assets. So I was thinking, okay, what do I got? I got muscles, and I'm different. Okay, and I have a mindset, and I don't think there's many that compete with my mindset in Hollywood. So I was okay. And I decided I just make my own path and I force myself into the industry, whatever it takes. And when I went back to Europe, I started putting together a plan, and I've been executing that plan ever since.
Yeah.
So that's really how I got into this. And on that journey, I bumped into Fansu. we met in Cannes Film Festival, and so on. So that's basically the story of my life.
Yeah, I mean that's really interesting. I like definitely the part where you're realistic about who it is you are and your capabilities, and then you go find a niche for yourself. You know what I mean? That's what a good business, whether it's your personal brand or an actual like retail business that you sell things to people. That's basically what you're doing. You're establishing a solution to a need that exists, and then separating yourself from the competition in some way, right? I mean, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. Yes. And you need to approach it in a logic way. You can't just approach everything in an emotional way, because a lot of acting is emotional. But if you want to achieve, you need to be good at what you do, and that's part of that thing, But you need to know how to build your business, basically.
Yeah, so certainly that's something that a lot of people these days with independent media, not just films, but podcasts and all this other stuff, people that otherwise would have been working for somebody else are now working for themselves and having to develop their own personal brand. And I'm not sure most people really know how to do it, because part of it is being a self-promoter to some degree, and I'm not good at that. Like I was a soldier. My job is to be quiet and fuck people up. You know what I mean? So the idea of making people look at me all the time is not something I'm super comfortable with. Luckily, I do it in a room by myself with a camera, and it's not. And like I don't mind doing stuff in front of crowds and stuff like that, but it's the interactive part is not the main part of this job, so it's fine. But finding that niche is really important, and then working yourself into it, and then getting like great at that one thing you do. And some of the stuff that I've seen you in, like, but the good news for you and your brand is that Americans can't tell the difference between a Norwegian and a Russian. You know what I mean? And there's always room. There's always room for Russians in our film and television. So that's good for you. But you played quite a few Russians.
And it's definitely coming back.
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah.
The Russian part is definitely coming back.
Yeah. Well, you've played, I guess, like Russian gangsters and shit like that before. That's a pretty common trope in the film industry.
Yeah. So I didn't do a lot of big parts. So when I transcend into film, I do a lot of small parts just to get into the industry, and then I do whatever it is. But the last couple of movies, I've just been focused on my own movies, except for Those About to Die. There's a Roman Empire setup, you know.
That's cool.
But I just want. I've been just focusing on building my thing, you know, and if people like it, it's gonna work. And if people don't like it, well, it doesn't work. But it looked like it's working. So I just continue on that journey. And I trust what I do, you know, I make more and more of my type of action films. And then I hope, you know, the budget is expanding and you get on board on other projects that's bigger, you know, and all these things. Let's see where we end up in 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people love action movies. I mean, you mentioned Rambo before. Rocky, Rambo, everything that Stallone and Schwarzenegger did in the 80s and 90s. Jean-Claude Van Damme, all these people, like, if you make a decent movie like that, people will watch it. They love that stuff. I love it. Like, I still go back and watch Predator, all these movies.
Yes, and this is some of the ideas. Our first movie, Last Man Down, was a throwback to the 80s, you know, and I think there is, I would say the 80s, but also part of the 90s. You know, there's a lot of great movies back then, you know, and I don't feel there's so many of those people making that kind of movies anymore. So if you just touch into that market, there's a lot of people that grew up like you and me, you know, and Fansu.
Yeah.
And there's millions of us. So if you just touch into it, I know there's a big market for it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I already see now after those few movies, and a lot of those people that made all those movies with those guys you're talking about, I've been approached with a lot of them. So there is definitely a market for it.
Yeah, we like it. Actually, some of our buddies that are in the UK military just made a movie 2 or 3 years ago, I think, and we just had them on to talk about it. They made it themselves. They hired some people that were professionals, but for the most part, they wrote and starred in the movie themselves. People love that stuff. People like shooter movies in general. You know what I mean? Fansu, how did you get involved in the action side of it? I mean, is your story the same? Did you grow up watching this stuff and just like, yeah, I want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I started actually training martial arts. That was my big passion when I was young. You know, my entire family, you know, trained martial arts. And then few years later, you know, when I found film and that film interest, I actually discovered that it's film and martial arts. It's very, very close. You have styles, you have masters. You can make your own paths. You can combine. You can merge styles and such. So going from martial arts, you know, stop training and continued in film was quite easy. So I also made a lot of martial art films as well, besides action. And that was really my passion.
Yeah.
So I only focused on action, and I studied all the action films to find, you know, the tricks in the book, so to say. And what actually, you know, propelled me to actually focus even more on action and the way I work nowadays is the director Robert Rodriguez. His style and his approach to work to make films, because that was the first time I actually discovered you know, some other director in Hollywood making films, you know, with much lower budget and also working you know, wearing many hats, just like I did when I was young. So I just found that inspiration in his work. Everything, from not only directing, but producing, doing all the editing myself, operating the camera, being a steady cam operator, sound guy, all those pieces. So I was very young when I decided that I really want to make only action and be very good at it.
Did you guys use? I've been involved in a couple of these here in the U.S., but did you guys use military technical advisors at all? And where did they where did you film this? I guess first of all, and then what did you use as far as military technical advisors?
So I can maybe answer a little bit on this. So I've done a lot of training. So I never went to the army myself. But I did train. I trained a lot with private contractors for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done a lot of training and diplomacy, not on your level, but still, I know how to handle it. And before this movie, I was talking with a friend of mine, and he's former SAS, and he helped me with some. We were just talking through. He read the script, and he just gave me some input what he think, on different things. Mm-hmm. And of course, then you're on budget, so you have to compromise a lot of things you wouldn't if you had a budget.
Yeah, it's also basically. Like sometimes stuff you would do in real life doesn't read or look good on camera, and you've got to adjust it. That's just the way it is.
Yes. So, I mean? But I did had a few conversations with him. He read through the script and he gave me notes, and that was just a favor he did for me. So.
That's good. Yeah. So, Fansu, you said you studied martial arts. When you were younger, what martial arts exactly?
It was Wing Chun, Kung Fu.
So you probably grew up watching like Crouching Tiger and stuff like that. All those films that were Wing Chun movies.
Yeah, for sure. So Bruce Lee was my big inspiration as well. But what I actually took further in my life up until now is the philosophy of martial arts, everything from not giving up to the mindset, controlling your mind and body, and so even though I'm not training a martial arts anymore, it's the mindset has really been a big thing in my life.
So. How do you? This is a good question, I think, for action movies. When you're going through the script and then directing, I always like to ask people this: how do you find balance between realism and entertainment? Because Daniel mentioned it, and this is a fact. There's two groups of people that you can't fuck with. One is nerds. If you fuck up science stuff in a nerdy movie, they'll turn it off. They'll get mad and leave. And for the military, gun people, if you do weird stuff with guns, they'll be like, this is silly, right? But again, like I said, some stuff just doesn't read that well on camera. Administrative reloads and the way that you might do certain things, you just don't see it on camera. It doesn't look good, whatever, and you've got to overplay certain stuff to make sure you get the shot. So how do you balance that, the realism with the entertainment part? This is a question for both of you, but Fansu, you start, please.
Yes, I believe actually the balance is in the audio. That's the big part, because you can really tweak things with audio. I mean, either off screen or on screen. And also, also how you put together all the shots, combined with that, to find that balance. So the balance, yes, because I'm also the editor as well. I can balance together with the sound team, so that it sounds good and it looks realistic with the flow.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't become like a pistol with like 50 rounds or something. it's all about, how you put everything together with the audio. And
Yeah.
I mean, even though you don't actually see the person shooting, the sound has to be correct as well, and the amount of bullets and such.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, it's kind of a new thing too, because back in the '80s when we were watching all these action movies, no gun ever ran out of ammo ever. It didn't matter how much you shot it. It was just like, all right, I guess that dude's got some magical beans or something. But Daniel, yeah, how do you, like, as an actor, because at the end of the day, it's your face on there. You know what I mean? So you don't want to look like a jackass or anything like that. Especially somebody who's such a fan of action movies growing up, you want to get it right.
So yeah, it's super important, and also, Fansu, you probably know this. We had a discussion in post production about something I didn't bought. You remember, Fansu? And I was upset with in the post house when we had a conversation with the post team. Something that wasn't realistic with some of the gun stuff, and I said, "You can't do it." And like, "Oh yeah, but we already done it." It's like, "Come on, guys," And so yes, I care about it. And I will give you another good example. So let's say hand combat. So or martial arts or boxing. So I done stunt training, but I also do some boxing training. So in boxing, you don't want to show your next punch. And you want to be close. You don't want to expose yourself,
Right.
So you go quick, boom, boom, boom. Small movements, but punch. On screen, if you do that, it looks terrible. So you need to go big punches. So for example, a hook, like a Tyson hook, boom, But on screen, you need to go with a big hook.
Right.
Because if it doesn't read on camera. And that's one example how if you do it right, it doesn't look good on camera, but so you may have to do some compromises for it to read on camera. So that's one example. But I also think, in general, I would say, back to the 80s, you see a lot of way people hold guns and how they shoot. And, it's like, the action starts starting with a AK-47 like this, So there is some, I think I love watching those movies, but I think that's a little bit too much of, So for me, at least, I try to get how you use the weapon correct as much as possible within that framework, that you also need to have whatever you need to have in the frame and so on,
Right.
And also make sure your punches is selling on camera. And then you need to go wide instead of small one.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
That's a good example.
Yeah, I mean, even for us in real life, and this is silly, but there's 5 principles of patrolling: planning, recon, security control, and common sense. But we always say that the 6th principle is looking cool. And it might be the most important one, right? You don't want to not look cool. So sometimes I feel like a lot of the stuff we do is for effect, even in real life. There's some impractical movements from time to time. But yeah, you definitely want it to look good. I mean, that's because the action part is entertaining, but the action part is meant to keep you in the story, right? And if it takes you out of the story, then it's failed at its job, frankly. And you guys did. I mean, there's a lot of brutal scenes in this Stand Your Ground movie. You shoot people in the face. I enjoy that very much. People, it's like there are some people that are super fans of slasher movies like Scream and all that shit. I never really got into that. But war movies where people are getting fucked up, I've been watching those since I was a kid, man.
Yeah. I remember my first war movie was Platoon.
That's a
and Full Metal Jacket. Those two, and I watched them with my dad.
Full Metal Jacket and Platoon as a child is pretty serious.
I know. Well, child, I was maybe a young teenager.
Well, either way, that's probably fine. Who does? You guys probably have a stunt coordinator, but who choreographs the fight scenes and all that stuff?
So that's the stunt coordinator, and he's a friend of mine, Dan Stiles, and he's really good on independent movies. So you have huge stunt coordinators that do the big Marvel stuff and the big Mission Impossible. They're amazing, but they used to work on budget like 200-300 million. Me and their stunt budget is probably 50 million. So you want someone on a film like this that you know how to spend. If he get a few 100,000 in his budget, he want to make sure he has a great movie. So you want someone that understand how to maximize your budget within whatever you have. And Dan Stiles, our stunt coordinator, he is amazing on this. He worked with Jesse Johnson on a lot of movies and Scott Atkins and all those guys. So he was amazing.
Yeah, I think he was in Vikings as well, if I remember correctly. I think he did stunts for them.
Yes. But he's very good on independent movies. He's really good at whatever budget you give him, he can make it look good.
Yeah.
And that's important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the choreographer is one of the most important in an action movie, right?
Definitely.
Like, there's only so much the actors can do if the scene sucks.
And also the stunt people and, the group, them, so that they actually work in sync.
Yeah, that's for sure, yeah. So especially in your case, Fansu, if you're working on like middle to lower budget stuff, you're going to do a lot more practical stunts than you are CGI. Obviously, CGI is still pretty expensive. We'll see with AI how that's going to go, because who the fuck knows these days. But what's your approach to that when you're when you first read a script that somebody's passed to you? I imagine that you're thinking about how it's going to look on camera. How can I shoot this shot? What do I got to change to make? Because no script survives first contact with the camera. That's just the way it is, right? So what's your approach to that? Do you read through the script and just imagine it? Do you storyboard, or how does that go?
Yeah, so my usual approach is storyboards based on the screenplay, because I see everything in pictures. And then, when it's time for the action, I talk to the stunt coordinator, and the stunt coordinator with his team then makes a pre-whiz video, and then I receive that version based on the script. We talk about it, make some adjustments, and then we have the action pieces ready, combined with the storyboard. And the storyboard is also the next phase is going through the storyboards with the DP as well, so that we have all the visuals set.
And how do you when you're visualizing all this stuff, at what point does the stunt coordinator come in and you start? Is he in that room on the storyboard from the beginning? Because you would think that
he actually comes later. Okay. So he's not involved in the storyboards. It's just me, and then the DP is joining me later. So the stunt action pieces are separate.
And then how do you weave him back in? How do you weave the stunt once it's time for the stunt coordinator to actually take your vision and put it on screen? How does that work? Do you show him the storyboards like, hey, make this happen, or does he have some, I guess,
we have discussions. So what I usually do, what I did for this film, I took cuts from different films and styles I was looking for, and then he implemented that style based on our discussions into the test videos, the so-called previews he makes with his team. So he makes a first version, cut it together with sound effects and stuff. It looks very simple in some training facility, and then we have more discussions. The DP is also involved, and we go through all the steps. What can we adjust? Is it possible based on the location? Do we have to adjust something? And then we. And if there's some extra action in his videos, we actually implement that in the screenplay if it looks very, very cool, and then so that it becomes a part of the film.
Yeah, and then when you have Like good. This is a kind of a follow up to that because it's about the composition of the whole film. But a good soundtrack makes the difference between a great movie and a just okay one. Sometimes the way that for segues, the way that it moves the action, the way that it builds suspense and stuff like that, all super important. Do you work with certain musicians to do this stuff, or is it just every film is different, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, every film is different. So for this film, I had a Danish, speak of Danish connections. So a Danish composer,
And
we pushed for a hybrid of orchestra and electronic soundtrack.
And what's your goal exactly? I mean, certainly it's script dependent, but let's talk about Stand Your Ground specifically. It's there's a quick setup in the very beginning of the film. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. There's a quick setup that starts the problem, and then mission begins, and it's mission from then on out. So it's pretty active throughout it, right? So you want to keep upbeat, but like music that lets you know it's serious as well. So how do you just tell the creator, the musician, to be like, hey, here's the tone I'm going for? What do you tell him that makes him make that music?
Yeah, so my way of working is that I have a template with music from all kinds of films the last 40 years or even 50 years back in time. So I construct a temp score based on what I'm looking for, so that the composer understands. It's my way of telling or having a discussion and even brainstorming with the composer. So instead of saying like, I want suspense or horror, I can play a track from, like, say, from Psycho, for example. I used so the first half of the film, I had more horror music, and then I changed to action scores. And then it was up to the composer to find a balance and also to merge it, or not merge, but bridge the horror music to action. So that's usually how I work.
Yeah. One of the other things so we made an independent movie in 2015. It was like a veteran zombie movie, basically. And script process, couple of rewrites, and then we filmed the entire thing in 16 days because we were on a budget too. We raised money on Indiegogo back in the day. And it turned out to be the highest grossing independent film of 2016. We did really well with it. It's completely retarded. The whole thing is goofy as shit. You know what I mean? But we did that on purpose, obviously. But those long shoot days, those 14, 16-hour days, they'll get at you. I think for the actors, it's rough because you're in and out of character. You're trying to either stay in character. You're doing a lot of physical shit, especially in action movies sometimes. But then if you're DP director or something like that, you're watching the dailies afterwards as well. Like you're watching the edits from that day. Like, holy shit, that's a long day. Like how do you do all that? I mean that's a lot. I don't think people understand how much work goes into this.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, especially when you're a director and editor as well. You have to edit all the footage in your head the same day, the same moment you shoot.
And how do you, like, Daniel, from your perspective, have you crossed over at all into the directing or editing side of things, or any of that stuff?
I have decided not to do it, but I've been writing a lot of script, co-writing scripts, and I'm producing movies. So a lot of the time I'm producing. I have decided not to go into directing or editing. But of course, it's important to understand the process. I've done a few courses on different things just to learn it, but I have no intention at this point. I think it's enough focus on be good at something instead of try to be average on everything, But of course, to understand all the position is good, because if I understand how he think, I can give him what he needs. So this is my mindset on things. It's like, on I want to understand how it works so I can be better at giving what he needs.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. A lot of my buddies who they were either in the military or police or did something else, and they got into acting or the film industry or TV industry later on, have tried to do some of the other roles, even if they're just shot. Like if you've got a day where you don't have any scenes to get shot out, you're just hanging out with the DP or the showrunner or somebody all day, trying to, just like what you're talking about, trying to understand how both sides of the business works. Yeah. I'll tell you, Michael Caine used to do that back in the day. I'm sure you know who Michael Caine is, a famous actor.
Yes.
He used to do that all the time, and you can find all these old videos of him giving acting instruction to people, but it's from the director's purview or the camera guy's purview, right? So he's like, I know you as an actor want to make things realistic, and you're going to do it this way, but think about it from the camera angle, right? Just like which eye you look at when you're facing somebody and talking to them and the camera's offset looking at you. If you look at their eye closest to the camera, then you get a fuller version of your face. But your instinct is to just look at the middle of their forehead or into both of their eyes like most people do when they're just having a conversation. Little stuff like that you may not know unless a director specifically told you, or unless you get on the other side of the camera from time to time and try to figure it out, right?
I would say, of course, when you shot a lot of movies, you would know this because if you need to learn it as an actor. So, for example, when you come from acting school, you may not know these things, but as soon as you start shooting movies, you will learn it through that process. At least this thing with eye lines and stuff. So, but it's definitely important for you to understand what your team is doing. You know, your whole. You know, when you make a movie, it's like a big team. You know. And the more you understand how everyone else working, the better you can provide whatever they need.
So from the director's standpoint, Fansu, how do you give notes to the actors without, like, this is something I've seen. People get super robotic. If you give them too much instruction, they'll just start doing acting super robotic instead of feeling natural. How do you instruct people without getting in the way of their, acting rhythm, I guess? I'm sure it's kind of a delicate balance.
Yeah, it's also very different from actor to actor as well. So I mean, some actors you talk more before the scene, in the script stage, while others you adjust during the shoot.
Do you do a lot in the table read? Like, I'll read it like this, just so you can hear them actually just verbalize what you're trying to do, or like how early in the process do the notes begin for you? I guess
it's not in that stage. It's more when I have a dialogue with each actor separate. That's where we find the tone and the balance and the style we're aiming for. And then during just before we begin shoot, we also make some rehearsal and adjust everything, and then we go live, and then we either go for what we get or we adjust and try different ways of the scene.
Yeah, that's interesting because we do audiobooks, and sometimes you write something and then you say it out loud and it sounds clunky. So what we'll usually do is write the book, we'll record the audio, and then we'll go back and edit the book to match the audio, if that makes any sense. Because sometimes, I'm sure it's the same stuff, looks and sounds different on camera than it did in your head. So you're like, oh no, let's scrap that and change it. And you want to give, sometimes you want specific, like, dialed in language on something, but do you ever, I certainly from time to time you give the actor levity, like, hey, here's the line, and if they keep saying something that's in that ballpark, but maybe it sounds better than you thought it was going to, you just roll with whatever it got, right?
Yeah, I really believe it's important to be flexible, as long as the core in the dialogue is still there, because every actor, sound and act different. So it might it looks good on the paper, but the actor might sound very different or pronounce, or I mean, there are so many things that can change or move the dialogue and the pace. So I think it's very important, to let the actor just go with the flow.
Yeah, you want like some genuine emotion in there, certainly.
Yeah.
Daniel, what about that? What about so we see obviously the final version of movies edited from start to finish, but they're not always shot in order like that. So you might be, especially if you have different haircuts or facial hair during the process, you'll shoot out all the stuff with facial hair first, then shave and do the rest. Certainly people know that, but still, you're going from, so I can't remember which movie I was thinking of earlier on the way when I was driving in today, but it was one specifically I wanted to ask about. I can't remember it now. But basically, the dude had a beard when he was out fucking shit up. But before with his family, he was clean shaven, which means they had to shoot that part out last. But so you shoot for 2 or 3, 4 weeks with the beard doing all this action stuff, and then at the end you have to shoot the happy scenes. How do you transition from chaos for 4 weeks straight, like you're just in that headspace all the time, and then you go back to like, oh, I'm a happy-go-lucky dad with a couple of kids now all of a sudden?
So it's correct. So if you want to shoot without a beard, you need to shoot in a different, you start shooting with the beard and then you cut the beard after, and then you have to fix it in edit. But let's say on a film like this, Standing Ground, we were shooting the film in 20 days. And
actually 18 days even.
Oh, wow.
18
That's
days.
quick for action. Jesus.
And yes. And I had 5 to 6 scenes every single day. I go from full action, and I'm doing my own stunts in this film. I do all the stunts myself. I'm doing fight scenes. And then I have, and you know this, on a film set, you go always over time, because there's something happening.
Yeah.
So you over time, and then it's like, oh, we need to hurry, we need to get this last scene before you wrap for the day and so on. So they've been pumping you, and you're fighting for maybe 4 hours. And then it's like, okay, you have 5 minutes to change and come back to the order stage. And then go straight into the emotional scene. So you, from being pumped up and fighting for several hours, you run into changing room, put on the new costume or whatever costume you need, and then you just fix the makeup, whatever, quick. You may be back in time or whatever in the storyline, and then you go straight on set, and you have to start being emotional. So it's very challenging. And then, you shoot most of the days. I don't have one day off because when you shoot so tight, you don't have time to breaks. So I'm shooting more or less 12 hours days. Plus I'm training. I never skip training. So after I go to the gym, and then I need to eat all my food, and then you just need to start rehearsing for the next day. So it's the same, probably we get 5 hours sleep on average or something.
That's a long 3 weeks.
Yes, you're tired after.
Yeah.
And
you did this one. You did this one in 18 days, you said?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's tough. That's tough.
But
okay, well, let's talk about Stand Your Ground then. How did this movie come about? Who got this ball rolling?
So a mutual friend of ours had a friend that wrote this script and approached me. And when I read it, I didn't know that much about the law. So it was really exciting for me as a Scandinavian, because you can't find this law in Europe.
Yeah, no, so that is uniquely American for sure.
For sure, it sounded very American. So I really liked that challenge. That this is American film, making an American subject based on this law, and then action on top of it, and then also I really love the story that it goes from 0 to 100, and with a very nice build-up, almost like an old Western film. So that really intrigued me. And then I approached Daniel and said, we have a good script here, so.
Yeah, that's
and it happened quite quick. I remember this because he came with this, and we were talking with a medium-sized studio. They want to do something with us, and we were talking about something else, and then this came on the desk, and I said to Fansu, "What about this other script you just sent me?" And he said, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And I said to the studio owner, I said, "Oh, why don't you just send me a script? I think would be amazing to shoot in your studio." And he read it, and it happened, basically. So it was a quick turnaround from you sending me the script until we were in production.
How long between the script and production?
A couple of months, 1 month.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
2 months.
Wow. And how did you fundraise for it? Was it privately funded, or did you guys do a crowdfund or something?
No, private. So this is the thing is, the studio want to make some movies, since the movie with us, and they funded it.
Yeah, so we did crowdfund, but my co-host on the other show, you'll meet him in a few. He's made, I don't know, 20 or 25 films as a writer, producer, director over the years, and fundraising is always one of the hardest parts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just people, especially with the influence that China has on the American box office that I mentioned before. They love superhero movies and action movies and a couple other things, but comedy doesn't translate between two different languages for the most part, so comedies don't get funded anymore. Even dramas to some degree don't really translate from one language to another, so they're tricky as well, which is why you, over the past 15 years, actually since about 2008, the bulk of the super successful movies you've seen have been not even shooter movies, but superhero or stuff like Mission Impossible, stuff like that.
Yes, it's correct. And I think it's more like, roughly they say 1/3 is China, 1/3 is Europe, and 1/3 is America on the how much you make overseas. So I think 1/3 is roughly in the States, 1/3 in Europe, 1/3 in China on average, depending on the movies. But yes, so in the market, we lost China because they don't buy any European or American movies anymore. So then we have almost less of them. It's just less money available. So it just means you need to be more clever how you do everything.
Yeah, and there's definitely an audience for it, especially in the countries like Northern Europe where you guys are, mainland Germany and the UK where they've been fighting in wars for a little while. Australia, they really like action movies down there. There's a lot of places in the US, US and Canada, obviously, but there's a lot of places still to be able to do this stuff.
And I see a lot of interest in the Middle East. They love this kind of movies.
Yeah, they love
all the movies I made. All the movies I made, they love it.
Yeah.
So I agree. Like Western, Northern Europe, Northern America, Middle East. It's still, but it's just more limitations because of this kind of, China is a big market, like you said, or whatever, and now you're losing out a few places. So, and the industry is changing a lot. There's a lot of things changing.
Oh, yeah.
You just have to be really innovative how you do everything. Be very clever. Spend your money right. When you get some money to shoot a film, you need to be clever with money.
Yeah. Yeah, and India and China make up half the world's population. And China's kind of starting to close themselves off a little bit in that regard, even though they still are heavily invested in 4 or 5 of the big studios in Hollywood. But India's had Bollywood for years, since the 1950s, I think, right? So they've had their own complete industry over there, and it's a completely different style of movie. I mean, it's like Crouching Tiger style physics. Like physics don't exist in Indian movies at all. It's so, I mean, they're hilarious to me. But I don't know how you break into that market. There's a 1.4 billion people there though. So
yeah, it's huge.
So one problem is because they have Bollywood, they normally watch their own movies. They watch the big movies coming from the States, you know, the Marvels, but most of the time they watch their own movies. So there's a big market for their own movies.
Yeah.
And then when we come with movies, and my movies that I've done so far, they work in India, but also there's a problem with piracy. There's a lot of piracy going on. Yeah. So you don't, even if there's a lot of people that love action films, you just don't make so much money from it.
Yeah.
And they're really precious about their own movies. So I understand it. I don't say it's bad. I just say that's a challenge from our point of view. You know, we want as many as people around the world want to. I would love as many as possible to watch our movies. You know, so but there's a lot of great markets out there. You know.
Oh yeah. Look, that's the thing about. It's just about getting it made and putting it in front of the right people. Entertainment.
Yes.
There's something for everybody out there, and definitely everything that's made somebody will like. Tell me.
And I want to say one more thing
go
about
ahead.
it is, if you have a good action film, you can sell it anywhere. As long as you have a good action film, you can sell it, because you said what translate to other cultures. One thing that translate to all cultures is action and killing.
Yeah.
So whatever is action, you can sell it in China, Russia, Middle East, Africa, Latin America, Europe, America. They all love it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So when does Stand Your Ground come out? When is it available? And where? Where can people watch this movie?
It's already out.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
I saw the screener, so I didn't know if you
US.
guys had actually published yet. So it's out. Where can people watch it?
Amazon, Apple TV,
Sweet.
Fandango. What else?
That's awesome.
It's basically
all
on
the big ones.
all platform where you can buy and rent a movie at the moment.
Nice, yeah.
So
I watched it this weekend.
on
It was
all
great.
platforms.
Yeah,
Yes.
I watch. I really enjoy shooters. I don't care. You know, for me, one, Peter Stormare is a great actor. You guys got him as kind of the head villain over there. He's always great, from Prison Break and everything else. Constantine. He's been in so many movies, and TV shows. He's a great actor. But I really enjoyed the violence. That's something that I really enjoy in these kind of movies. So I'm glad that it's out now. Everybody go check it out. What else do you guys, starting with you, Fansu, what do you have coming out next? What's up next?
I'm working on new action films in different styles. So everything from World War II action to modern action as well. So that's something I'm pushing for a lot.
And then Daniel, before we get into what you've got coming down the pipe, I wanted to ask you about Those About to Die, because Iwan Rheon is in it. People would remember him as the bastard Bolton kid from what was his name? Ramsay, the psychopath from Game of Thrones. He's in it. Anthony Hopkins is a great cast. And people love Rome too, for some reason. I don't know why. Like, everybody makes movie after movie about Rome. Nobody gives Greece much love, even though Greece kind of set the stage for Rome. But tell me about that show. That's a 10-part series, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's a huge show. It's a 150 million budget, and it was directed by Roland Emmerich.
Oh, nice.
And he made Independence Day.
Yeah, he wrote Independence Day, didn't he?
He directed Independence Day, and also The Patriot. You know, The Patriot.
Oh yeah, that's a great movie. Yeah.
Yes. And the screenwriter made Saved Private Ryan. You know, with Tom Cruise. Mm-hmm. So we had a great team. I'm playing a villain. I'm playing against Ivan in most of my scenes because he's the lead, and I'm the villain in the season one. It's amazing, and I grew up loving Rome. like probably most people, and just shooting in Rome. We were shooting in Rome for 8 months. Was amazing.
Oh, wow.
And walk in on these sets. You walk into Rome, and it's amazing. And they rebuild the Circus Maximus, for this arena, and it's just feel the power of Rome and how incredible. And I think that's why we love Rome. It's like we have this old past of this huge, powerful empire that had all these amazing things, and I think in some way we all fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated by the Roman army, the gladiators, the whole package, and be part of it was just amazing. So when I got that request, I was just, oh hell yes! I was so grateful for it.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody
that's so
offers
much
you
fun.
8 months in Rome, you take it, right?
Yes,
Even
yes.
whether it's acting or not.
And then we had a lot of great action scenes, and here you use the swords, So I trained a lot with gladiators in the past. When I did a lot of strength training, I learned to train as a Roman army or legions. So we did a lot of these trainings. I had already a lot of this sword training to use Roman tactics and how you use Roman swords. So it was something I was able to use again.
Yeah, and this
it's-
series is kind of about like the underbelly or the criminal activity that happened in Rome back in the day. And the Aventine, like Circus Maximus was where a lot of the chariot races happen and shit like that, but it's really close to the Aventine, which is for import export, was a big port area that it was like, imagine the modern day organized crime, like mafia people working at a port. That was what the Aventine was, but back in like from 150 BC until like 300 AD in that time period, right? So it's super interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's done a movie or a TV series specifically about this time and place and the criminal activity that was going on.
Yeah.
Nothing that I can remember.
And also another thing that was interesting is I forgot what I was going to say, but Those About to Die is based on a book. It's a famous book from the 60s.
Well, those About to Die is like the quote from the gladiators would say that before they went out onto the thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's a book from the 60s. And that book, the guy that wrote it, this become a renaissance for Roman Empire movies because he explained how the life of the gladiators and all this thing in details. And that put a lot of the thing that happened in the 60s and so on in movies is based on that book. So, but it's another thing that was interesting. So if you've seen it, you see everyone have an accent. All the cast has accents. And I remember Roland Emmerich said this. He said, if you're in Rome 2,000 years ago, you have people from all over the empire.
Yeah.
They wouldn't speak with one accent.
Yeah.
They would speak with different accent, the Germanic with a Germanic Latin accent, and so on. The Spaniards with a Spaniard accent, the Egyptian with Egyptian. So this is also why it's in English, but he made sure he wanted all that cast to speak of different Mediterranean, European accents, because he said that's how Rome would be back then.
That's 100%
interesting
right, yeah.
touch.
I mean, it was people say that the United States is a melting pot, but Rome was the original melting pot for sure.
Yes.
Well, look, we got to get out of here. We got to go do a different show here in a bit, but I appreciate you guys coming today. Tell everybody again where they can find all your work. Fansu, you start where they can find your work and where they can find the movie and anything else you want to share before we get out of here.
Yeah, you can find it on Apple and Amazon mostly. That's where you should focus to find the stuff.
And
Yes.
anything you got coming up too?
Again, it's on all the platforms that normally sell movies. So please check it out and watch it, and we will be very honored. So it's. I hope you would like it. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you guys.
At least we gave everything when we made it.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy the shooters, man. I like the shoot 'em up movies. I watch pretty much anyone that I can get my hands on. I'll watch them. So yeah, you guys go check out the movie and all the other work too that you can find from Fansu and Daniel. You guys have done quite a bit together over the years, I guess, and you got some coming up as well, a sequel to Last Man Down and some other stuff. So congratulations on all that. Thank you for coming today. We really appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
And thank you all
for
listening.
having us.
Thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.